Hey, maybe you've wondered what it's like to serve at Doulos, or maybe you've been part of Doulos and are curious about who God has here during this time serving. If that's you, you're watching the right video. My name's Andy, and I get to be the communications director here at Doulos, and I am so excited to be here with two of my favorite people. And I'm not just saying that. These are actually two of my very favorite people, Lane and Akari, to hear their story, their Doulos story. So, Lane, Akari.
Yes. Thanks
so much for chatting and sharing your story with us. Why don't you just tell us, first off, what your roles are here at Doulos, what you're doing down here?
So I serve here as the athletic director in my primary role. I've also taught U.S. history in the past, and part of athletics as well, as I'm the basketball coach.
Nice.
For the high school team. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, I am the school nurse, and I kind of wear a lot of hats. I also help with student leadership, and I coach volleyball, and I teach a health class, but my primary role here is school nurse.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. So let's rewind way back, probably more than 4 years ago now, because both of you, like me, have been serving here for about 3.5 years.
Yeah.
How did you first discover Doulos? How did you find out about it?
Yeah, our story is kind of funny because we were supporting financially another staff, the second grade teacher actually, and during our honeymoon, so we had been married for like 3 months, we went to Punta Cana, to a resort there.
This is like your literal honeymoon.
Yeah. And we were like, oh, let's go see Laura Lee is her name, the second grade teacher, and just like bring her things and let her know we love her and just see her community kind of, even though we were in Santo Domingo. Anyways, long story short, Laura Lee was like, we need a school nurse and a U.S. history teacher. And we were like, oh, that's not for us. And I was like, maybe in the future, like when we have kids and we pay off our student debt. But she was like, well, not everyone has it on their heart to be in the missions and to serve abroad. And we had it on our heart. And so we kind of just started walking through the doors, and the Lord never shut them. So here we are.
That's awesome.
Yes.
You know, so many people, it's funny how many people's stories start similarly, where it's like, oh yeah, we learned about it, and both of us were like, nah, that's not a me thing.
Always.
But yeah, like so many missionaries didn't want to or think they'd be missionaries.
Yeah.
And it's fun to hear and remember that that's similar for you guys as well.
Yeah, I think personally for me as well, it was something that like I wasn't necessarily excited about as the doors, being real, right? Like,
yeah, it's great.
As the doors kept opening and we kept walking through them and they weren't shutting, I was kind of like, all right, finally, like, oh, there's going to be a legit reason why we shouldn't do it or we can't do it. But we kept praying, we kept following God, and obviously we were being obedient to Him. And then we were like, okay, like this is real. So for me, at the start, it was like a difficult like thing to grasp because it was so different than anything I've ever been a part of or done, or my culture or anything.
Right, or even thought to ask for.
Yeah, right. Like I'd never even imagined in my mind that I would do something like this, but now like I can't see myself anywhere else, honestly. So yeah, it's funny how God works sometimes, you know.
How did you know that God was calling you to Doulos? Like, was there like a moment, or was it that series of things that just summed up to this clear thing? Like, how did you know?
I remember walking away from the conversation with Laura Lee in Santo Domingo, and it just like being on my heart and being like, you need to pursue this. You need to pursue this. You need to pursue this. I feel like that was when we knew we needed to like take the step and apply at least, and just let it be in God's hands. And I feel like there is something in my heart, at least the whole time, knowing that this was like going to be where we ended up, but still kind of fighting it. I don't know, just like this piece of knowing it was going to happen. But also like the worldly side of me was like, maybe the doors will shut. Maybe this isn't what He has planned for you, but like secretly knowing that it kind of was His plan.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Deep in my heart, I knew it, but I was trying to deny it.
It makes sense to me, and that was similar. My wife was like, Lord, let this not be your will.
Yeah.
And then it was just super clearly His will.
Yeah.
And then with that confirmation, we moved forward.
Yeah.
You know, in confidence and joy and all of that.
Yeah.
So you apply, you have some interviews, Doulos offers you a position, correct?
Yeah.
Was there anything between that offering of the position and saying yes to it, or did you just kind of know, like, yeah, this is just pretty obvious?
For me, there was some things that I was kind of like still hung up on about leaving the States. One of the biggest things I would say for me was like, I'd always been involved in sports and things in my life growing up there. I was coaching currently, or at that time, at a high school high school football in the States.
Yeah.
And so I love that part of it. And this was before, originally I was just offered the U.S. history teacher job. So that was before I knew about the athletic director and all of that. But so I was really kind of taking some time thinking about that. And then after actually we got offered the jobs, we were contacted again by Doulos, and they were like, hey, we're looking for an athletic director too. We know that you have a background in sports and coaching, so we'd love to, if you want, like, we'd love to have you come and kind of like head up our program with that.
Wow. And
so I think that was, to me, that was one of the things that really confirmed that we were supposed to do it, was because God was always there. Like every doubt or insecurity that we had, he would have an answer for us about, like, no, like, this is what's going to happen, or this is what I want you to do. And even if it's something that maybe for me you could say is like a selfish want to like still be involved in sports, like, he knew that was something that my heart needed, and he knew that was something that was going to help me serve here better and keep me here longer. And so he answered that prayer, and for me that was kind of the last, in a true Dominican fashion, the last domino to fall, right? And so that was, for me, that was like the turning point of like, okay, like, I'm both feet in, like, we're ready to go. So.
Like, I even remember making a pros and cons list, and the con was athletics. The con was like Lane wouldn't get to coach football, like, because he was coaching football in the States, or he wouldn't be a part of sports. Like, that was our big con.
Yeah.
And then literally the Lord like provided in a sweet way.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And so basically the school's needs lined up with your skills. Like, God worked on your pros and cons list out of love, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you said yes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about from saying yes to landing here your first day, the transition. How'd your family feel about it? Let's start there. Tell me about your mama. Tell me about your papa.
Yeah, I think both of our parents, if you're watching this, Mom and Dad, sorry, they did not really want this to be like God's plan for us.
Sure.
I'm sure they still pray that, we would head back soon, in all honesty. But I feel like it took obedience from us, so then it took obedience from our parents and our family also, for them to be like confident and trust like where God was putting us and his plans for us. But that wasn't hard. I also remember like being on the phone and crying as I told my sister about our decision, and her crying and me crying, and just knowing that like it meant that I wasn't gonna get to watch my niece and nephew necessarily like grow up in front of me. But I would say that the Lord has been sweet and giving me plenty of opportunities to be with them and share life with them and still not feel too far away. But that is a hard part, is family, I think.
Yeah. That's
probably one of the biggest cons. But God always provides a way for them to still be a part of our lives and us to be involved back home as well.
Yeah. Can we, let's just go into that a little bit, right? Like, what exactly does family being hard look like for you guys?
I just think probably the distance between us and them, and just kind of some, like Akari was saying, some of the things you miss, not being able to be present for nieces and nephews growing up, birthdays, anniversaries, whatever it might be, things that you would celebrate together as a family and have those like sweet moments together. Just the distance is a challenge. And I also just think like our families are so, we got the thing going, but
this is real world Doulos. Here we are.
I just think it's funny too, because I think over time you start to change a little bit. Like you start to see the world a little bit differently. You're being down here, your worldview opens up in ways, at least for me, that I could have never imagined, being from a very small town in Oregon. Like, my worldview like this, and now I'd say it's a lot wider. And so, you start to see things differently, things start to change. And one of the cool opportunities, I think, though, about that is your family gets to come visit you and experience this new life, this new culture by your side. And at least for me, when my parents came and visited, and my sister as well, that was one of the coolest things, was to be able to see the Dominican Republic through their eyes again, and to let them experience this awesome, beautiful island, this beautiful culture. Let them see Doulos again. It's always a precious reminder of, what a special place this is, and why God called us here. So for me, I'd say it's those things that are kind of challenging.
But I would say on the pro side, if there's any moms and dads out there listening, our parents get to go on vacation to come visit us, right?
Hey.
We get to go to the beach with them.
Great vacation spot.
we also, because we work that school schedule, like when we do get time together, it's super intentional.
Right.
So like in the summer, like we get 5 weeks with our family, like intentional time.
Yeah.
Whereas if we were living in Oregon and my parents were living in California, like I actually might see them the same amount that I see them living in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And I know that's the case with other families as well. So like bigger picture, it's like we grieve what we don't even know what we're missing almost. And so we get more of those like good memories and like dedicated time to our families rather than just a weekend here and there. So
I know we're really grateful for the school schedule to have like 9 weeks in the summer, 3-4 weeks in December.
Yeah.
Like that is a really important time for us and our family as well. So tell me about money. Let's talk about money. Fundraising. You mentioned school debt. Tell us, how did fundraising kind of come together? How did the financial side of it play out for you?
Yeah, there was a time before we started fundraising where we were like, okay, we're going for 3 years. Maybe we can work our butts off and make a bunch of money in the States before we move and then live off of that, which was a very stupid and selfish thought that we had, I think, because fundraising just is really scary, but it brings people into just the mission here at Doulos who aren't here every single day, which is really cool. And it also just increases our trust in the Lord that He will provide, and He always does. And what that looks like for us is like we have, I feel like 70 people financially supporting us every month. And it wasn't as hard as we expected, I would say. Like we were really scared at first, and man, like there's so much insecurity in like the ask and just kind of like that whole process, but it wasn't as hard as I expected to be. And it, for us at least, it doesn't continue to be hard maintaining that. Like we've been here for 3.5, almost 4 years, and like money's not a problem for us.
I would say that the people who are supporting us, we're incredibly thankful for just their belief first and foremost in what we're doing, because that's really what it is their belief in the mission of Doulos and the difference that we're able to come here and make for this community. I think probably that for me, what I would say was the most challenging thing with fundraising was honestly getting over the insecurities of yourself, like having your own insecurities about asking people to give to you monthly. My background, I'm from a very like middle class working family, and so the idea of, I remember explaining to my parents the idea of me asking people to give to me so that I can work or whatever, not the traditional American way of earning it through a salary or hourly or whatever. I know that was kind of a big adjustment, and from like my background, I was like, man, like this is going to be a challenge. But like we said, God has been faithful through every step of the way, and though it was hard to ask people and kind of get over ourselves, so to speak, of like putting ourselves out there and being vulnerable, because it is a vulnerable thing. I think it also was a testament to our faith in Him, and it was a testament to Him just being sustaining for us. There were people who said like, oh, we're not going to support you, or we never even heard back from that ghosted us, which is fine. Like people can do what they want, but the fact that we were able to find that many people who God had moved their hearts to want to support us and to want to give to us, it's just another extension of our ministry. It's not just that we're making an impact for people here. Like the people that give to us are also making the impact, and in a way, like what we do is impacting them because they get to be a part of such a great thing down here. So
for sure.
So that's what
Really quick, what were like the logistics side? Did you send a couple emails? Did you have some like donor dinners? Did you like have a booth in your church lobby? Like what did it look like for both of you? Because your number as a couple with school debt is a bigger monthly number than like an average 23-year-old single person. So you like kind of like me with a family, right? Like little bigger number, but God did it.
Totally.
How did He, like what literally did you do?
So we asked Doulos basically for like a rough estimate of financially like what it takes each month to live here. Then we took our student debt monthly payments, like we calculated it, figured out what we needed to pay monthly to pay our student debt off in 10 years. And then we like combined those numbers and we were like, all right, that's our goal. But I think back to just like that goal, it was really big. And I remember telling Laura Lee, who was here, like about our goal, and she was like, what? Like, just shocked by that. And so in some ways it made it feel like it was going to be really hard. And so we sent out letters, like physical letters to everyone we knew. We like did a name storming.
Yep.
We figured out everyone we knew who we had their addresses, sent them out letters. And then we did like follow-up calls or emails like a month later. Then we posted on social media just to let like our community know it was happening. We spoke at maybe 3 or 4 churches.
Yeah, we had a booth set up a few times.
Yeah, and some churches were generous. And first you'd be like, hey, can we just set up a booth? And they're like, no, we want you to talk in front of our whole congregation, which is super intimidating. But through those means, and then through word of mouth, people be like, hey, we heard you guys are doing this. We want to be a part of it. Like us not even needing to ask them, we're able to reach our goal.
I felt like
before we moved here.
Yeah, I also just felt like it's worth mentioning for us. I think the way that we probably got the most support, or at least like the most people who wanted to join our support team, was being specific and asking them, whether that was through a phone call, whether it was from an email even, but honestly face to face, meeting with people, sitting down, having breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever, and making sure that they knew that that was why we wanted to meet with them. It wasn't like we were going to spring that on them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Hey, buy my doTERRA or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you can edit that out if that's going to offend a lot of our clients.
doTERRA's going to sue the crud out of us.
But it's like we made it very apparent that that's what it was for, and then we were bold in asking for whether it was a certain commitment for time or a certain amount that they were going to, that we could ask for them.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, that's the vulnerability of putting yourself out there.
It's so hard. But
And you might get rejected, and it sucks to get rejected. Everybody hates getting rejected. But you also have I think you have a better chance of people seeing and hearing your passion for what you're going to do, and wanting to be a part of it. And for us, that was probably the biggest way that we got the most supporters, I would say.
What I hear is and it was very similar for us. It was intimidating, but once we started, it was actually energizing.
Yeah.
Like people would start saying yes, and
Yeah.
people like even would interrupt us to be like, we want to give this amount,
Yeah.
and it was like the same amount we were praying they'd give, and it was just like, holy cow, like another confirmation that the Lord was calling us to this transition, which is awesome.
Definitely.
So you got fully funded before you got here. The Lord worked and did that.
Yeah.
Any other things about the transition before you land here?
I just think it's obviously the Dominican Republic's very culturally different than where we're from in the United States, probably from most places in the United States, I would imagine. So just like kind of, arriving here and getting adjusted to the cultural differences, whether it's all the way down from the food to the driving to the language barrier was a big thing. Before we moved here, we didn't speak really any Spanish, and so those were some of the biggest adjustments that we had to work through over time, with our boots on the ground being here in the Dominican Republic.
For sure.
And those, honestly, the language thing I think probably took the longest. I think there might be this kind of misconception that just because you live in a place maybe for 6 months or whatever with a different language that you're going to pick it up right away, which is not the case.
Right.
You very much have to work at it, and you cannot be lazy. You cannot just sit in your room and never interact with people, because that's how you're going to stay how you are.
Right.
If you want to get better, you got to go out, you got to put yourself out there, you got to be able to be vulnerable, and you got to be okay with awkward conversations and awkward moments. But that's how you learn. I mean, that's how you get better in anything, is going out, making mistakes, and learning from them.
So let's zoom in on the specifics of learning Spanish.
Yeah.
Both of you landed without much. And one little thing, the 3 of us all started at the same time, which was really great.
Yeah.
And so how many minutes per day, minutes per week, how long did it take? Because you're conversational, right? Like maybe I'm very careful to use the word fluent, right? But y'all are conversational. You can meet people. You can, Spanish is no longer a thing. You can just hang out and it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Which is like the goal of language learning, that language becomes irrelevant and we can just hang out.
Right.
But what specifically, how many minutes per day, how many months, years?
I think it's different for both of us. Lane was more intentional. He uses it more in his job as athletic director. And you were really intentional with just music and Duolingo and different things like that. And we did do a 3-week course in Sosua, kind of to help boost us a little bit. So that was really helpful actually in the end. But for me, I just really focus on Duolingo. We have Spanish classes at Doulos, and then just for me, it's like listening to other people speak, I guess, helped me. But I'm not as intentional as Lane was. And I think for that, he's like reaped more from it. But
I just think you got to be brave. Like you have to go out and you have to try to use new words, new phrases, new contexts about things that you're learning. Like if you can sit there and listen to music, study it in a book, do Duolingo all you want, but if you never go up to somebody and actually try to have a conversation with words that you're trying to learn, then you're probably not going to learn it as effectively. And even when it comes to doing announcements here at Flag or our morning staff prayer meeting, like I had a lot of times where I would do Spanish announcements and probably everybody was laughing at me because I made no sense. But like you have to do it. You gotta let your guard down and not have too much pride to make yourself look silly, right? Because pride is going to get in the way of you making real progress, I think.
Yeah.
And so
pride will get in the way of you moving here and learning Spanish. Everything.
It will.
You have to humble yourself.
Pride is one of the biggest hurdles, I think, for almost everything about being here.
Yeah, for sure, because you're constantly failing.
And I don't know about you guys, but nobody's ever like laughed at me or some people are like, what or huh?
Right.
But like nobody, like I've never been like picked on.
No, of course not.
And you've got to speak a ton of bad Spanish to speak okay Spanish.
Yeah, you do.
And that's the hard part.
You really do.
Yeah. One of my favorite memories is we were in our homestay together for a little bit, Andy and Lane and I, and Andy asked our homestay mom for soup to wash his hands because he used the word soup in Spanish instead of the word for soap.
Sopa.
Sopa.
Necesito sopa por mis manos.
So there's just a lot of...
He was very confused.
Fun memories that come from the Spanish learning process. Yeah.
Or the word embarazada means pregnant, not embarrassed.
Not embarrassed.
Or when you said desert instead of dessert. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that happens
another one.
A lot too.
Yeah, and I think honestly, on that note, the homestay was another huge way that we improved our Spanish. Like being with another person, like living with another person who's going to cook your meals for you and just be there every day when you get home from work, like, and having to not being able to just disconnect from work and turn off your Spanish brain and watch Netflix or do whatever you want to do at home. Like you have to interact with someone again in your second language, even when you're tired. Like that's, to me, that's where you build that huge base that you can then construct your language off of. You know, so I think it's important.
Awesome. So you guys land in Jarabacoa. Tell me about Jarabacoa. How would you describe it as a town, as a community?
Small town.
It's got a small town feel. It's very it's picturesque. There's a lot of beauty around town, a lot of nature.
Loud.
It's loud, but
what?
Definitely loud.
But so is this. I'd say this country in general, if you compare it to the U.S., is a very loud country, very loud culture, which is great. We've come to appreciate it for sure. But yeah, I mean, Jarabacoa does have a small town feel.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's not like you're living out in a village in the mountains. Like it's not that small town.
Yeah.
But it's like connected to where, like the downtown area, you see a lot of people that you know. Once your Spanish improves, I think, and you start to make connections with locals, you'll see these people a lot, and you become a member of the community quickly. You're not just a face in the crowd. Like, if you really put in the effort to get out there and make connections with people, like people will recognize you, and people are friendly. Like everyone here is friendly, and it's really a fun place to be. Get to that level where you're accepted as part of the community. I think is special.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So tell me about your life outside of Doulos. Friends, small group, basketball, church. Like paint us a little picture of life outside of Doulos.
Yeah. So we stay pretty busy with Doulos things because of sports, because sports is pretty much after school and on the weekends. We're not really there's a lot of waterfalls and hikes around here, but we're not really those people. I think we'd rather just rest and relax at home. But then when we do have longer weekends, our favorite place to go is the beach. That's kind of our...
that was our honeymoon spot. Probably like most people go to the beach. Right?
So we are very much beach people. So that is one of the positives of just living on a tropical island, is that we get to go on these tropical vacations for a 3-day weekend or 2-day weekend. And I feel like that's where we find a lot of joy and rest. We have a group of friends that we're really close with, and they're almost like family. And I feel like that's one of the things that I don't know if I would have had that in the States, just be like as close-knit with our community as we would be here. And so that's kind of, we go to the beach and we hang out with our little group of friends.
For me, if you want to get involved in things around town, there's a lot of things you can actually get involved in, like with local Dominicans as well. Like I've played in basketball tournaments here at the town court, the municipal court, that have been a lot of fun. And honestly, that's a really cool way that you can meet people, but also improve, for me, your Spanish. My Spanish. Like playing basketball in my second language is a big adjustment. But
learn all the words.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun, and just like, so those are kind of the things that we do when we're not working. But like she was saying, we're here. We work a lot at Doulos. We spend probably 70% of our time in the country right here, in campus. And so, but that's what it is, and that's what we love. So
for sure, so tell us about your work here at Doulos, kind of the team. What's it like to be part of the crew, the Doulos team?
Well, prior to moving here, our professional experience wasn't necessarily like in our roles. Like I worked at a hospital, and Lane, you were at the time doing roofing and coaching. So moving here, I was honestly impressed at how professional Doulos is. Like I think one of my biggest fears being like support raising our salary and moving here is that people would assume that we were like at the beach all day or like tanning by a pool all day. And it's always fun when we go back, people are like, you're not as tan as I expected. And we're like, because we work. So I would say it is like a very professional environment, but also just a very loving and caring environment. So like our community here as a school is just really incredible. And yeah, I would say it's a fun place to work, and just a very loving place.
Yeah, people are very accepting, and I think not just because we're half American or North American staff, you could say, and then half Dominican staff. Like people get it. Everyone's kind of gone through what new staff are going through, so people get it. They're here to help. Nobody's like judgmental or out to get you or whatever. Like people are very much willing to help you adjust well. And even the local staff, they get it. They've been around Americans, some of them if they were students for almost their whole life. And so so that's been really cool to see that and be a part of that culture. Like it's a very positive and like uplifting, and people are behind you and helping you. Culture. So
it is neat how there is this like professional standard, but like this big like tailwind to help you meet it. So it's not like, oh well, don't worry about it, life's hard. Like no, it's like, no, come on, like, and let's go together. I never thought about that, but I think that is definitely Doulos.
It's unique for sure.
For sure. So what were the first 6 months like for you guys? Like the transition, that type of stuff.
I would say hard, busy, but also life-giving, because it's like all these new things, a new job, a new community, new language, new noises. Like everything's new, so your senses are on like overload. But just the Lord is so present in helping you get through that. And just like learning to drive a moto, learning to drive in this country, everything is new. Like that's how I would explain the first 6 months is just transition.
Sure.
And we all go through it. Everyone who's moved here goes through that. So it's hard, but there's people to support you.
What different people have kind of been there for you as you've gone through the different stages, from the everything's new to maybe I miss my mom, or some people even go through a dip like, why the heck did I say yes?
That's normal.
It's a bit of a roller coaster. What sort of different people, what different seasons had you gone through, and what sort of different people helped you through them, or resources helped you through?
I think that it's normal, like you're saying, to have those kind of thoughts sometimes of like, what am I doing here? What, and it's normal to say, the grass may have been greener on the other side. Oh, if I would have stayed in the States, this would have been easier. I would have done this. Maybe a common thing is, I would have made so much more money in my profession in the States or whatever, right? But I think in a lot of ways, like, I wouldn't trade just the experience that you get from living here. And yes, it's tough. Yes, you have to sacrifice. Yes, there's some challenges, but like coming out of the other end of that, once you get to the level where you're like you're saying, conversational. You've built that good base of community. You become part of the town. People know who you are. Like, the growth that you experience just as a person is so rewarding. And I think that, for us, we had a ton of people who were there helping us. We had a lot of local staff who were like, hey, I don't know how to buy this, or where should I go for the best deal, for this, or another one was like, if our car is, having problems, which mechanic do I trust? Which one's, which is even a thing in the States. You gotta, you gotta kind of rely on people to give you advice. And so a lot of the local staff have been great with that. A lot of the, American staff who have been here a long time, like we were saying, know what it's like in that first 6 months, and the dips that you go through, of the highs of like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I just learned 10 new Spanish words this week, and now I feel like I understand everybody. To then maybe 2 weeks later, you're like, I don't understand a word anyone is saying. I would just go home and I want to cry all day because I miss whatever it is,
Yeah.
And so people get it. And I think that's the big thing to emphasize, is like, people get what you're going through, and we as collectively as a group at Doulos are there to help you guys, or to help anyone succeed in this. And as long as you're willing to put in the effort, willing to not, let your pride get in the way, I think, and you're willing to work hard, like, you will succeed here too. And it's beautiful when you finally fulfill what you feel like God has called you here to do. It really is a beautiful thing, I would say.
That's great.
So,
a couple more questions. What is something that you didn't, that was like unexpected? Like, oh, I thought, like, well, we weren't even thinking of becoming missionaries, but even if we would have, I never would have guessed like this little blessing or this little thing. Like, I couldn't have anticipated it.
Yeah, definitely the community. So like, I did not anticipate having some of our favorite people be here, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like, people that I feel the most comfortable with, to the point where sometimes we all get teary-eyed knowing that probably in the future, like, God might call us all in separate directions. Hopefully not, but he might, and like, that's okay. But the community that we've established, I think I said that earlier, is just something that we never expected, never thought we'd have, and I'm almost positive we probably wouldn't have had that in the States, because it's just this unique time where we're all transitioning together. We're all thrown into this crazy life together, and it bonds you in a way that I don't know how we would get that bondage in our community in the States. So I would say that was a big shocker. I'm still just like, wow, I get to do life with these people. Like, how sweet of God to give that to me.
That's awesome.
I think for me, like, there's so much emphasis on the support raising and learning Spanish and learning your role in your job or whatever, but you kind of, you start to, not that you start to, but in a way, it's easy to lose sight of the nitty gritty, like, when you're here, like, this is what you're doing. And for me, with sports, like, one of the most life-giving things I've been able to do is to be a part of young athletes' lives. And for me specifically, as a basketball coach, like, the lives of the young men I get the privilege to, like, be a part of and be a mentor and somebody who disciples them through sports has been so special. And it's honestly something that I don't think I probably would have got that chance in the States to do that. And I'm so thankful for that. Every day I thank God for the opportunity to be a part of these guys' lives, and to lead this sports program in a way that is going to positively impact people and positively going to make disciples of Christ through that area of sports. And it's a great way to spread the word of Doulos around the island. When we go play different teams from Santiago, the capital, wherever it might be, Sosua we've even went to, like, it's a good way to get the mission of Doulos out there and more people to learn about it and get behind it. And so I just love that aspect of my job, that I get to be a mentor to young men and women in this community, I would say, for her as well, with her volleyball team.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you paint for me, like, paint the picture, tell the story of one specific moment where you're like, oh my gosh, like, this was all worth it. Like, oh my gosh, like, this is why you called me here.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot. But
yeah, it's hard to pick through. I get to take some 4 students to a medical mission on the other side of the island every year, and I feel like I always walk away from that being like, I love my job. Like, I love what I was called to, and it was exactly what my heart was prepared to do. So I think that would be it, that moment that's just one of them. But I walk away just like super filled with joy and excitement for just the life that I have here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's harder to narrow down to one thing. I think just as you spend time here, you actually have a lot of those moments. And sometimes, especially in the beginning, it's might be just, you know, hey, I learned how to say this phrase in Spanish and now I belong here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's something so small, but then over time, as you build up what you're doing and you become more comfortable in your role, and you start to make the relationships and the connections and the improvement on your Spanish or whatever, it becomes what you could say is like a bigger thing. One thing specifically, I guess I could mention recently, is we took some of our sports teams to play a school in the capital, and it's one of the, you know, more I don't know how you would say, prestigious schools on the island, I guess you could say. And we had some success with some of our teams. Some of our teams didn't have success. But I remember after the game being able to consult with our kids about what they had saw, because it was unlike any place we'd ever played before. And for a lot of them, maybe we won't ever be able to play a school like that again in those kind of, you know, facilities or whatever. And I think it was awesome to debrief with them about, hey, you know, look at what some people have. And Doulos as a school, we're 50-50 split, right? The 50-50 emphasis, but like we're on that level, you know what I mean? It's there's not that huge difference, and I think that, you know, the haves and the have-nots, whatever you want to say about what can be a common thought here in the Dominican Republic is like we're all humans. At the end of the day, we're all children of God, and being able to lead our sports teams in a way where like we can see that, but like, hey, we're at the same level as you guys, and our kids, like, doesn't matter your skin color, doesn't matter your background, like, you know, on the sports, the playing field, I guess you could say, like we're all on the same level. Yeah. And I think it was fun to be able to see our kids, you know, thrive in that recently. And that was a moment where I sat down after that experience, that trip, and I was just like, man, like I love it. Like I love what I'm doing.
So if there's some viewers out there who are in that spot where you were 4 years ago, discovering Doulos, kind of like, oh, the doors aren't shutting.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to them?
Yeah. For me, it would be the same advice that Lorley, my friend, gave me, and I think actually another missionary gave to her, which was that like missions is not on everyone's hearts. So if you feel it on your heart that you need to go into missions or that you're being called to serve abroad, like God doesn't put that on anyone's hearts. So if you're feeling that knock or that tug, like do it, commit, because He's called some people to support and do other missionary work in different places, but if you're feeling that on your heart to come here, like let it happen. Would be my advice. Don't fight it. Just let it happen, and good things are to come.
Yeah, I just think trusting in God is the key. He knows our plans for us that we don't know. Like we said, we had no clue that this is something we would do with our lives, especially graduating college, like not in our plans at all. But like just being trusting of Him, listening to Him, you know, praying and really seeking out what His wisdom is and His will for our life, and then following that. I think some people can get that, you know, that sign, if you will, of like, hey, this is what I should be doing, and maybe that they let insecurities or the world tell them that that's something that they shouldn't do, and maybe they fall away from it and don't do it. And so I just think being trusting with God, perseverant, like being down here once you actually get here, being perseverant and not giving up. Because in the end, if you don't quit and you keep going, you keep working through the tough times, like the sweetness, the good times come at the end, right? You don't start out with good times. Usually you got to work through things to get to the good moments. And so for me, that it's been totally worth it. Every moment of struggle, pain, you know, embarrassment, whatever it might be from trying to adjust to living here, has been really worth it in the end, for sure.
Awesome. I know I'm personally, as your friend, so grateful that you guys said yes. It's been so awesome to be down here with you and part of this community with you. Also, on behalf of the students, just want to say thank you for saying yes. I see the way that you uniquely invest in those boys and in those girls, and you will be a person that they talk about the rest of their lives. And all that glory is for God, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to thank both of you for taking that next step and for being down here, for being my friend, and for being part of what God's doing down here at Doulos. If any of you want to connect with Lane or Akari, the best thing to do would be to email info@doulosdiscovery.org, or on the website, you can just click the Start the Conversation button, fill out that email, and I'm sure they would love to talk to you. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation, and we look forward to being in touch. God bless.